Alright, so now we have another Dark 30 here, going between Travis and myself. With this one, we end up having about 3 different event cards and some ambush airborne. I'm happy with keeping this hand. We have Temporal Shift, so we can start throwing some stuff back, more throwing stuff back in and delaying, being able to banish and draw a card if there's something threatening. Rift Summoner, who's going to let us put in some demons if we have the option to do so by breaking our own stuff. Then we have our airborne ambush for the rescue. So what we're going to do is play this to return it to his hand and make him get rid of something. Because it's going to force him basically to discard and attempt to play it again. And it's not going into his discard pile, which is the key part here. So he's still throwing it out at us. This is going to end up being able to block this one right here. So he's ending up comboing the play. So our option is either to block it or take it. And since we can bounce it or banish it later, it's not a big deal. Or we can wait for our turn and break all the champions and not have to worry about it at all. So we're going to end up taking that 3 damage. That was really, it gets us a card and it forces a card out of his hand. So it ends up being a nice ability. Now if we're going to end up banishing everything on his turn, or on our turn, we don't want to play anything into that. And really going and breaking all the champions are going to get rid of both of these in a way that he's going to be forced down to the last 2 cards in his hand, plus whatever he draws, allowing us to have a little bit of a head start on that, which is the nice part about forcing him to banish early. Now the other option is we could hold on to this a little bit later. So what we're going to do is play that out now. And we're going to basically sit and wait a little bit. Because what we can do is end up playing this and getting rid of what we're annoyed by, which is going to be this guy keep coming in when he keeps coming in. And it still nets us another card. It's your turn, we can return it, or we could draw 2. So what we can do here is force the return of this card to his hand, and then throw in 3 damage at him, since he threw 3 at us. And we'll see what he plays out of his gold. So nothing to play there to deal with it. So forces over to his. He didn't get to spend his gold, which is a good sign for us. That means he's going to be playing stuff only on his turn at this point. So he ended up breaking it. Not a big deal to us. We can end up ambushing. And this is going to get rid of his discard pile, which is going to help with keeping down that card count. That way if he ends up having a recycle, it's forcing it out of there. So now it ends up being our turn. We have an 8/8 throw in. So we can attack with that with no problem at all. So he ends up breaking it, putting a token into play. Not a big deal to us. What we can end up doing here is playing out both of these, which will allow us to break ours and start making in more demons. Now I could have did that on his turn, but I'm doing it now to threaten the board, making him play a little bit harder, because we have the ability to break the board at any time to us. So he has a little bit of flying, not a big deal, especially with this guy. We can trade demon for demon all day long, much easier than he can, because our demons will end up always coming back to break that out. Now, we are going to lose a little bit of life due to this guy. And that's going to continue to get the 2 damage through, but it's still going to end up getting us a stronger board state, because he's just going to end up blocking with those guys in the next turn anyways. So he's going to sit there and try to burn it out, try to get more life in towards us since he's down to 1 card. So what we can do right now is either we can choose to draw 2 cards, which is what I'm going to end up doing. And this one's going to say put a zombie into play for each champion in their discard pile. We end up having 2 champions, we'll have 3 whenever it comes around. And since we've gotten rid of his discard pile, he'll end up having 1. So this will allow us to draw the 2 cards to put us in a better position. We can also break this guy out. That way we have more for when we wipe the board. So we'll end up breaking this, putting out more demons in front. And then what we're going to do is break the champions and set the board up in a position that's favorable to us. Now we have the ability to deal 7 damage to each player, or 7 to a creature and draw a card, which is going to be really nice on his turn if he plays anything that's threatening. We have an airborne, which is going to allow us to banish the tokens that we created. And we're going to have the ability to draw cards. So let's draw 2 cards here, so that we're in a favorable position. And we're going to save that mainly because we need it for the card draw. The airborne this dragon's going to give us is going to allow us to wipe the tokens on his end. So we're going to end up playing that, and we're going to banish his token. And I'm going to set these all up to attack separately. So he's going to put 6 humans into play. Now the fun part about this is deals 2 damage to each champion and each player. So the key to that is that's going to end up killing our guys, or we're going to force him to block and kill our guys. So he's going to throw 2 per to start saving that. Which is allow us to get our 2 damage in. So we're throwing tokens at this point. Not a big deal. It still leaves us in a favorable position. And you're sitting there looking at a grip of 2 cards versus 5 plus board position. So even though our life total isn't as high as this 35, that 35 is going to drop really low. Especially when we can start dealing 4 damage to a champion, that's going to draw a card. We have 2 cards to activate it. So he's playing a dragon out. It's really, as much as it is threatening in that it's air. But we're also talking about having air versus air. We can sit here and deal damage to it. It's not a big problem. At this point, what we're going to do is use this to draw 2 cards. So we're not going to sit there and let him be behind. This is also a nice part, as it allows us to play our champions as if they had ambush. So it's going to allow us to flash in for extra little bits. Now what we can end up doing here is basically ignoring that he even has that. And the reason why we're going to end up doing that is we're going to end up revealing this, return champion to his hand. And it has Blitz, so it's going to basically allow us to go much further up by using the Sea Titan. So we just throw it back like we don't care. Throw in for 9. So we know one of his cards in hand is that dragon. So he's down to 1 other card that could be viable. Now we're going to leave the token back just in case he has something with Blitz that we need to block on the ground. Which is what he was expecting, and that's not a big deal to us. We have an ability to get rid of what he has sitting out on his turn. So we know he has the dragon up here plus one other card. So in this case, we can do this and just wipe out what his tokens are. That's going to force him to now have a response play, which is either going to be the dragon, spending his gold, which we can then bounce back, or in this case, he's breaking our champions. So we know all he has left is the dragon. So when he plays the dragon, we're going to end up being able to break all champions to get rid of the dragon for what he has out. So we're going to want to end up playing something that's going to let us net a card here. In this case, we can get rid of the griffin and another 0 creature that we'd have no reason to bring back later. Or even if we're getting rid of the 1, we're getting rid of 2 things that we're probably never going to play again. And it's going to allow us to then throw out a threat in either demons, or we're going to be able to throw out this threat and let us net a card. This is going to force a response by him, since we can play as though we had ambush. And even if he does play the dragon, we're able to bounce it right back. So we have a line of play of either destroying the dragon and whatever else he puts on the board, or we have the bounce plus the ability to flash this in on his turn, plus dealing 7 and netting another 4. So it ends up putting the dragon into play. So we have 2 ways to break all champions. We can either do this and draw a card and recycle, which is going to net 2 cards, or break all champions, or this, it's going to draw 2 cards. So in this case, we're going to end up playing this out, basically bouncing his dragon and allowing us to threaten the board even more. So with where we're sitting, we're going to end up throwing this out. We have a way to... let's just bounce out the dragon. And then throw the damage down on his face. So that throws 12, that throws 5, that ends up throwing 4. So now we have him sitting at 5. We'll do this to gain life. And then we'll pass it over to Travis. See what line of play he ends up coming up with. Because we know one of his cards is a dragon. And then he has 2 other cards that may or may not have anything to do. But it is a really threatening board position, so it's either going to force him to use the next board wipe that he has available, which we have 2, and in this case he conceded. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.